Hey guys, it's John. You're in the JRB tree climbing channel. In my hand, I have a product offering. This is a telescoping pole for getting a rope in a tree to secure your lifeline. Let's review. I've been saddle hunting for 16 years, and I did an awful lot of research myself over the years, and I learned, and it shouldn't surprise you, that the number one hazard associated with climbing a tree is falling. And a fall doesn't have to be a plummet from the canopy to the ground. A fall can just be a short fall, especially when you've got something in the way that might hurt you. So for example, there are a lot of injuries that occur when someone contacts their climbing stick. I'm not a big user of climbing sticks, but I recognize a lot of folks are. So I'm going to give you two options for getting a rope in a tree, and I don't mean a lineman's belt. A lineman's belt's a positioning device. I mean a cinching connection to the tree. When you can, even if you're not a rope climber, get a rope in a tree using a throw ball. I've got a dedicated video on the use of a throw ball. But when a throw ball is not possible, I have given you some tools in your toolbox. I've given you the JRB Cinch, and I've given you the Maverick Hitch, both of which can be advanced with a pole. I've also showed you how to design a DIY pole. But you asked me, John, could we have a product? And I have worked with our friends at Ape Canyon Outfitters, and you can find this pole on their website in the JRB collection. This is a telescoping pole. It's made in the USA, and it's offered on the Ape Canyon website. It closes to approximately 30 inches and it extends to approximately 75 inches from end to end. And on the end, it has a hook I designed, and that hook is specifically designed for engaging the Maverick Hitch. And so we're going to call it the Maverick Pole. We're just going to keep things easy to remember. Of course, it does work with the JRB Cinch as well, but we're going to just go with the most popular configuration. Here, I've already put on the tree a climbing stick. And by the way, this will be the first time anyone has ever seen me on a climbing stick. And the reason is because I really don't use them anymore. I used to. And that's your discretion. If you want to use a climbing stick, you might be a one-sticker, that's fine. I just want you to eliminate the slack. I find stick climbing to be more difficult than rope climbing. So what I'm going to do today is kind of a hybrid climb. I'm going to show you how I just created a Maverick Hitch. Got a dedicated video for that. And I've never climbed this tree before, but I'm going to put the pole such that it captures the loop in the Maverick Hitch. And if you've got it tightened and it's locked, it can't be unintentionally released. And what I can do is I can walk this up the tree. I can walk it right over. Now, if the tree is, and this is a large tree, as you can see, but if it's got really rough or scaly bark, well, you probably don't want to be climbing that to begin with. But that could impede our progress. And so, apologize for the lighting that Mother Nature's given us today, but I'm gonna cinch that on the tree right at this location. And I'll do so by drawing in the rope while pushing up on the pole, and then as I pull down and it sets. All right, so down here, I have got one of my Longhorn Agile hitches already on the line, and I am going to attach that to me. Okay, let's get a closer look at this. So this hook is bent steel and powder coated. It's quite rigid and quite strong. And we had that permanently pinned in. And some of the earlier prototypes, it was removable or could be unscrewed. And that always seemed to happen at an inopportune time. We would never want to lose that hook. And so it is permanently pinned in. These obviously are the two tabs for extending the length. And they come tuned out of the factory pretty well. But if for any reason you found that when advancing it, it was able to be compressed, it was able to be pushed in, and that these needed a little bit more compression, we simply engage a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench in this location, and we could just put in a half a turn and get that snugged up. Two strands of rope are going to sit right in here on the Maverick Hitch, and we'll see that next. And now a really quick demonstration on tying the Maverick Hitch before we engage the pole. But please refer to my detailed video tying the Maverick hitch. I've got the working end on the right and the load side on the left. I form an overhand loop in this fashion, working up towards the tree. I go around the back and over that loop, and then through that loop. I lengthen this and flip it up and through. It's locked in this fashion by taking the working end and pulling it through that loop. It now cannot be released. I give a little tug on this, just a little tug to set it, but it's got to be able to run freely on the left side. And now, engaging the pole can be done in two manners. This is the way I showed you on the Maverick Hitch video, and that still remains viable. It's my preferred method, where I grab and engage both the loop and the load line and let it rest inside of the hook. I let both of these rest inside the hook and then walk it up the tree. If you have any trouble with mastering that, or if you find that the load line falls out, there is another option. The other option is to make sure that your loop is about the size of a grapefruit. That's about what I have here. And I cradle the load line like that, and then put in the hook so that it captures both sides of the loop. That's option 2, and this is really foolproof. This doesn't pop out, but it's just a little bit more difficult if you want to try to remove your hook. If you like to leave your hook in the loop while you climb like I do, well then this is fantastic, and simply walk it up the tree. This distance here is kind of important. The distance I usually choose is almost the diameter of the tree itself. We don't want it too tight, and we don't want it too loose. There's some feel required, and you'll have to practice and find that, and it may vary based on the tree, its diameter, and how rough the bark is. And a little bit more zoomed in. Option 1, the hook engages the loop and the load line in that fashion. And option 2, I take the loop and cradle the line. Cradle the load side and put the loop such that it engages both. Now I'm working with 10mm rope here, which is about as big as most saddle hunters use. This will squeeze through an 11mm, but if I had to, I could always take a tiny bit of that steel off if I'm working with larger diameter ropes. And if you have a preference for the JRB Cinch over the Maverick Hitch, which doesn't require actually tying a knot, here on the right is the side with the rappel ring. See my dedicated videos on the JRB Cinch, but we simply pop a bight of rope through, we open our carabiner, and we engage it. But the important part here is the use of the pole. And like prior videos, the pole simply attaches here with that single strand, whether it's the end of the rope through a JRB end loop like you see here, or whether it is actually a small umbilical tether as I described in the original videos. But this is where you engage the hook and walk it up the tree like that. And lastly, this is the Longhorn Agile hitch that you see in the climb. It's got that wonderful auto-tanding operation, and of course it is breakable under load.
Now I've got 2 bridges on my saddle. And there's many ways to have 2 bridges on your saddle. This happens to be my Blake's tensioner. But when we're trying to get maximum distance out of each move we make, it makes sense to have your bridge as short as possible. So this no metal bridge, I'm gonna tighten that so it's as short as possible. Get the slack out of the way. So this is not a full-on climbing lesson today. This is merely a demonstration on how to use the pole. Okay, so I've set the hitch. I'm comfortable with it. It's got my body weight. And now I can start to climb. But the key is, as I climb, I want to remove slack constantly, as constantly as I can. So I'm going to step up. You see that? And I remove slack at the same time. My trust is in my rope. It's not in my stick. I'm merely using that as a means of propulsion. Pardon my microphone hitting the rope. Let's get in a little closer to the tree now. So now I've got slack, right? I've got slack. I've got to remove that. Okay. So I've designed the height of this stick, the length of this pole, I should say, so that it's optimal in terms of the height I'm able to get it is pretty good for a one sticker. The other end of my rope is attached to me. I don't advance this. I abandon it and set a new one. I just tied a Maverick Hitch, and I can do that blindfolded and in the dark with high reliability. See my video on the Maverick Hitch, and now I've locked it. Now using the same technique, I'm pretty comfortable here. Okay. Now, of course, a one sticker would, at this point, they might dip down and grab their stick. Again, I'm not a stick climber. I'm going to just leave my climbing stick there and turn this into a hybrid climb, what I call my hitch climbing method. Here is my other Longhorn Agile hitch. It's already tied. I take my other bridge, clip into it. Shorten the length of my bridge to where I want it. And now I'm going to engage my garter hitch foot loop. And what I've done with the garter hitch, which is usually this long, is for hitch climbing or one sticking, I shorten its length. I just shorten its length by doubling it. Put my foot around it. I'm now loading that upper hitch. See, I never advance my anchor. I set a new one, make sure it's set properly, and then I abandon this. And how do I do so? I simply unlock it and release it. So I could repeat this process with or without the stick. This is so much easier. There's no metal to worry about, nothing in your way. I could repeat this process, but I'll get out of view pretty quickly. The whole point was showing you the pole and its capabilities. At this point, I'm going to collapse that. So what I encourage you folks to do, because a lot of folks haven't seen this before, it's a new concept, and well, hey, you know, my buddy or my uncle or my dad or my friends, well, they're not doing this, they're just using a lineman's belt, and in some cases they're not even using a lineman's belt, and they've never had a problem with something, right? I hear this all the time. They haven't had a problem with it. Well, we can't afford any problems when we're climbing. We've got to ensure that there's no chance of an accident. And so when you're asking questions, ask them of the right audience. Consider talking to an arborist. Consider talking to a rope rescue professional. Call our friends at Ape Canyon Outfitters, who also have a arbor and rescue and rock climbing division. Here's a company that's been doing this for 40 years. Ask them, when it comes to falling, avoiding falling is to always be tied into the tree. It doesn't matter how you're climbing. Got to have a rope in the tree, and you have to have it on little slack as you climb. I'm now going to remove that Maverick and clean up. Okay, guys, you get the idea. I want you to please, consider this purchase. We've got this discounted as far as it will go. It won't go on sale. My discount code will not work on it. Dealer discounts won't work on it because we've got it discounted as low as we could get it. And it's made in the USA as you've requested. It's pretty rugged, and I think it'll serve you well. There you have it, the JRB Maverick Pole. Climb safe, everybody.